There's something most people never learn about press conferences. The headline is almost never the most important thing said. It's not the direct quote that ends up on the ticker at the bottom of your screen, and it's not the clip that gets shared 10,000 times before dinner. The most important things a coach says are buried in the pauses between words, in the half-second hesitation before answering, in the deliberate phrasing that carefully avoids saying one thing while unmistakably implying another. It lives in what gets emphasized and what quietly gets left on the floor. And yesterday, when Todd Monken sat down in front of a live broadcast, he gave us one of the most revealing quarterback room updates a Browns coach has delivered in years. He said he hasn't made a decision. He made no formal announcement. Everyone ran with that headline. But if you listened to the entire exchange, every question, every answer, every pause and redirect, the picture that comes together is not complicated at all. Monken wants the public to believe Cleveland's quarterback situation is more open than it actually is. The path has been chosen, the hierarchy is forming, and Shedeur Sanders just got as close to QB1 as you can get without a coach handing over the keys on live television. Let's break down exactly what was said, what was meant, and what it tells us about where this franchise is genuinely headed. Start with Dillon Gabriel, because the most revealing moment from that entire press conference had nothing to do with Shedeur or Watson directly. It was the way Monken spoke, or more precisely, the way he didn't speak about Gabriel. When coaches genuinely believe in a player, they can't help themselves. They bring him up naturally. They mention specific things they've seen. They talk about his development, his work ethic, a moment from a recent practice that stuck with them. There's warmth in it. There's detail. When a coach is genuinely building something around a player, especially a quarterback, you feel it in every sentence because they're not just describing the player, they're describing a future they're excited about. None of that energy existed when Gabriel came up. The language was distant. The framing was flat. There was no enthusiasm, no specificity, none of the feeling that Todd Monken is constructing anything around this particular player. And in the NFL, that is not neutral. A head coach speaking about a quarterback with that level of emotional distance is not simply being professional or measured. It is a signal. Coaches are so deliberate with their words that the absence of excitement is itself a form of communication. Every element of how Monken handled the Gabriel conversation pointed toward one conclusion. He does not want Dillon Gabriel on this football team. A trade is coming, and the sooner it happens, the cleaner everything else becomes. Think about what that actually means for the remaining competition. Pull Gabriel out of the picture, and the room looks completely different. You're no longer looking at 3 quarterbacks with any legitimate claim to the starting position. You're down to 2, Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders. And if you were paying close attention, the way Monken talked about those 2 players told the rest of the story in a way that was hard to miss. Watson came up in a way that was genuinely fascinating because Monken was extraordinarily careful about how he framed the veteran's standing. He acknowledged Watson's experience. He recognized the value of having someone with his understanding of the game, his familiarity with NFL defenses, his presence and resources in a quarterback room. That part all sounds positive. But here's what was noticeably absent from everything said about Watson's position: certainty, commitment, any language suggesting Watson would be handed this offense and told to run it from week 1 all the way through to week 18. What emerged instead, and this is the part that deserves real attention, was a subtle but unmistakable acknowledgement of Watson's injury history and what that means for an organization trying to commit a full season to him as the primary option. When you stack up everything Watson's body has been through over the past several years, the reality of what he has physically endured and what that means for an organization trying to commit a full season to him as the primary option, the math becomes deeply uncomfortable. Monken knows it, the front office knows it, and based on yesterday's language, neither of them is pretending otherwise. So here's what those 2 sets of signals actually tell us when you put them together. They're moving Gabriel. Watson's injury history makes him an unstable foundation for a full season, and there is exactly one quarterback in that room who carries neither of those complications. One quarterback who has shown up every single day during the offseason with the right energy and the right focus. One quarterback who, based on everything we've seen and heard from the coaching staff this spring, is young enough to grow through the inevitable difficult stretches, resilient enough to handle a full workload, and talented enough that the organization already committed significant draft capital to surrounding him with protection specifically. When you eliminate the players who don't fit and focus on the one who does, you keep arriving at the same place. Shedeur Sanders is 90% of the way to QB1 in every way that matters inside that building. It just hasn't been formally stamped and announced at a podium yet. Now, let's be precise about what 90% means in this context, because some people will read that as hedging, and it absolutely is not. A quarterback competition in the NFL is never fully settled until the first official depth chart is released or the coach makes a direct announcement. That's simply how the league operates publicly. Organizations protect their process and their flexibility as long as possible, both for competitive reasons and because maintaining the integrity of the competition until a decision needs to be formalized is standard procedure across the league. But in NFL terms, 90% doesn't mean the outcome is uncertain. It means the coaching staff already knows which direction this is going. It means preparation is already being structured around the expected starter. It means the training camp reps, the preseason game planning, the day-to-day development work, all of it is being built around preparing one specific quarterback to lead this offense when the regular season begins. The remaining 10% isn't doubt about the decision, it's the window every organization keeps open to adjust if something truly unexpected happens. That's just responsible roster management. It doesn't change what the 90% means at all.
The decision, in every way that actually matters, has been made. Now, there's a conversation happening around Watson's move to a backup role that I want to address directly, because the framing most people are using is completely wrong. The dominant narrative treats this as a failure story, the end of something, a sad chapter in the career of a quarterback who was once considered elite, who went through everything he went through, and who never fully returned to that level. And look, I understand why people frame it that way emotionally, but that framing misses something genuinely valuable about what Watson can offer Shedeur in a backup capacity, as he prepares to step into one of the most demanding positions in professional sports. Watson has been in this league long enough to have an extremely high level of fluency with NFL defenses. He has been in pressure situations and high-stakes games that the majority of quarterbacks simply never encounter. He knows what it feels like in the fourth quarter of a close game, when everything is breaking down, the crowd is turning, and the coaching staff is staring at you, waiting for answers. That experience does not disappear because he is no longer the starter. It becomes a resource, a tool that Shedeur has access to on the sideline every single week, in the film room every single day, in the conversations between series that shape how a young quarterback reads what he sees and adjusts to what the defense is showing him. If Watson approaches this with genuine investment rather than quiet resentment, and everything suggests the organization had that exact conversation and got the right answer, then Shedeur has more than just a backup. He has a mentor who has lived through what he is about to face. That is genuinely rare. Most young quarterbacks stepping into their first real starting opportunity don't have that kind of seasoned resource sitting on the bench next to them. Cleveland is not just handing Shedeur a starting job, they are setting him up with every possible tool to succeed in it. That is smart roster construction and smart development philosophy operating at the same time. The preseason matters more than casual fans typically give it credit for, and this year it matters enormously. Most people dismiss those August games as meaningless, and for a lot of roster spots, that framing has some truth to it. But for a young quarterback who is preparing to begin a regular season as a starter and take on his first real extended opportunity at this level, the preseason is everything. It's where timing with receivers gets locked in under actual game conditions. It's where protection calls stop being mental exercises and become instinct. It's where the ability to make decisions under a real pass rush gets tested in ways that practice simply cannot replicate. If the Browns are genuinely preparing Shedeur as their QB1 through the preseason, giving him first-team reps, centering the offense around his strengths, building the chemistry and confidence he will need come September, then he emerges from those weeks having already worked through the growing pains in games that don't count, rather than learning those lessons in games that absolutely do. That is how you set a young quarterback up for success, rather than throwing him into the fire and hoping it works out under maximum pressure. Watch those preseason games closely. Watch who gets the first-team reps and how the offense is structured around that quarterback. The answer to Cleveland's starting quarterback question will be visible long before any formal announcement arrives. The quarterback decision does not exist in isolation, so let's take a moment to zoom out and look at the complete picture of what Cleveland has actually assembled going into this season, because it is the final piece of a structure that has been built with genuine intention over the past several months. The offensive line was meaningfully upgraded through the addition of Spencer Fano, a legitimate pass protector who gives the quarterback time to operate. The receiving core was expanded with Denzel Boston, who brings a completely different profile to the passing attack and gives the offense real versatility, and Casey Thompson, a precise route runner built to create separation against the tight man coverage that typically gives young quarterbacks the most trouble. The defense, which was already a top 5 unit last season, is not been gutted to fund these offensive additions. It remains a genuine identity for this team. And at the center of it all is Todd Monken, a head coach whose entire offensive philosophy revolves around putting quarterbacks in the right situations, giving them the right tools, and surrounding them with the protection and weapons they need to look as good as possible. Shedeur Sanders is walking into the best setup Cleveland has ever created for a young quarterback. The pieces were never really the question. The question was always whether the organization was willing to commit those pieces to the right player. Everything that came out of yesterday's broadcast tells us that commitment is being made right now. Since we're talking about where this franchise is genuinely headed, let's address the Super Bowl conversation directly, because I know some people instinctively roll their eyes when Cleveland gets mentioned in that context, and honestly, that reaction is earned. Browns fans are experienced enough to protect their own hope carefully. This fan base knows better than almost anyone in professional football what it feels like to get genuinely excited about something and then watch it unravel in October. So, after years of patience and disappointment, I am not going to offer the Super Bowl as a promise or a guarantee or something this city is owed. Real analysis doesn't work like that, and the NFL doesn't work like that either. But here is what I will say with complete conviction. Cleveland currently has the elements necessary for a deep playoff run in a way that has not existed here in a very long time. An elite defense that keeps the team competitive even when the offense is struggling. An offensive line built specifically to protect the quarterback. Weapons capable of winning against multiple coverages in multiple ways. A head coach who knows how to develop quarterbacks and construct offenses that put genuine pressure on defenses. And at the center of it all, a quarterback who has demonstrated that he does not fold under pressure. He processes, he doesn't panic, he finds a way through.
In a league where any team can get hot at the right moment and where the playoffs create conditions where anything becomes possible, Cleveland is no longer a team you pencil in as a long shot. They have a real defensive identity. They have a real foundation. They have real weapons, and they have a quarterback who is being given everything he needs to be successful. That combination gets you to January, and once you're in January, one fearless quarterback and a defense that makes opposing offenses miserable is a combination that can go a very long way. Here is where everything lands. Monken said publicly that he has not made a decision. That is likely technically accurate in the formal sense that NFL organizations interpret press conference language. The official depth chart has not been set. There has been no public announcement assigning first-team reps with a camera rolling. The process is still being carried out, but everything beneath that careful public presentation is telling an entirely different story. Gabriel is being moved.
Watson is transitioning into a support role, his injury history making him an unreliable foundation for a full season. One quarterback was the centerpiece of the draft class. One quarterback has had the coaching staff speaking about him all spring in the language of command, growth, development, and preparation, the exact language a staff uses when they already know who their guy is. Shedeur Sanders is that quarterback. The announcement is a formality. The decision has already been made in every place where it actually counts. Inside those meeting rooms, on those practice fields, in the daily conversations between coaches and players where the real direction of a franchise gets established long before anything appears on a depth chart. Cleveland is not rebuilding anymore. There's an important difference between rebuilding and building. Rebuilding means starting over, absorbing losses, stacking draft picks, and waiting on a future that always seems to be one more year away. Building means the foundation has been identified and the structure is going up in real time. The Browns are building. Myles Garrett is the foundation of a top-5 defense. Spencer Fano and the offensive line are the walls protecting what comes next. The receiver core provides the versatility to attack any coverage in any situation. And Shedeur Sanders, with the full support of his general manager, his coaching staff, and a locker room that has already started leaning in his direction, is the piece that completes the structure and determines what this thing actually becomes. Monken said he hasn't chosen a quarterback. What he actually communicated is that the choice has already been made. The process is simply being conducted the way all NFL processes must be conducted in public. So watch the preseason, watch the rep distribution, watch which quarterback the offense is being built around during the first weeks of training camp. The answer will be obvious long before any formal announcement is made. And when it becomes official, come back to this, because the signs were all there yesterday, hidden inside the careful language of a coach who told you everything without saying a single word of it directly. Shedeur Sanders is about to become the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland has waited long enough. The wait is almost over.